Hello, this is Roland. I wanted to make a little video today. I haven't made one for a while. I wanted to talk about the law of love and the law of liberty. Paul and Peter talk about the law of liberty. Liberty and freedom, and also love. And here's what I want to say, and that is this, that there is no freedom in nature. There's no liberty in nature. Everything has to conform to laws and to forces. There are forces that bind things together. In the atom, you have what's called a strong force. It somehow binds, and I know how it does it too. It somehow binds the protons, neutrons together. You would think they would repel each other, being of like charge, the protons, but no, they're bound together by this strong force. And the electrons are held in orbit by electromagnetic force. Molecules, or atoms, bind together with covalent bonds or ionic bonds. And the atoms form molecules, and the molecules come together, and they form matter. And then you have, for example, in the body, you have all of these molecules coming together and forming cells, and the cells form tissues and organs, and the organs form a body. And there's some sort of cohesive force that holds the whole body together. It's like a life force. Okay? In nature, you also see, for example, something which is called animal magnetism. There's a mysterious bond between the organism and the environment that it belongs to. Okay? Belongs to it. Some kind of a bond. It's called animal magnetism. The deer has a certain place where it belongs, and fish in certain areas. And so it is with all animals and with all plants. It's a mysterious hold. And for the animal, this mysterious animal magnetism is drawing power. The animal is drawn to its place, to its environment, to its niche, and to what's good for it. It's drawn. Okay? And the environment provides comfort and security to the animal. There's a certain comfort and security in its home, okay, in its territory. And the animal even gets strength from its territory. And then there's a herd, there's a cohesion or unity of the herd, where animals are bound together. Okay? And then in humans, you have group cohesion, group dynamics. Okay? And also, there's a binding force, a bonding force, okay, called hypnosis. There's something about hypnosis that draws the mind to something, or two people are drawn to each other, or the mind is drawn to something, and it's somehow held, okay? And there's a certain comfort in that also. So, for example, I maintain that what we call support, you know, when you're around, some people are very supportive. Or when you are a little nervous or you're not sure about something, you go to others for support, for reassurance. Okay? And I say that reassurance, that support is a binding force. It has a certain inner power to it, and it's hypnotic. It's a hypnotic force, and it's animal magnetic, but it's hypnotic. There's a certain hypnosis, hypnotic. You know how? Have you seen where someone comes up and touches you on the arm? They put their arm on your hand on your arm or something, and they lean over to tell you something. And while they have their hand on your arm, have you noticed how you have a tendency to become really still? Okay? There's some kind of and that arm, that hand on you, you know, if it's welcome, it's not obtrusive, is somehow compelling, makes you to be still, but it's also supportive. See? So it's a force. So look at all these forces. So now you see why there's no freedom. Everything has to, everything succumbs to these forces. When the forces are subtle, we call them influences, but they are forces. Okay? So there's no liberty. There's no freedom. The animal is completely bound in every way possible, from its atoms to its molecules, to its tissue, to its organs, to its to the herd, and to the environment. Everything holds together, okay? Which is the way it's ordained by God. Okay? So now, can you see why, if you apply pressure to someone, there's no love in it? See, if you pressure someone to be good, all they can do is conform or rebel. See, humans can conform or rebel. We do have that. But the rebellion itself is only a reaction to the pressure. See, it's a reaction, and it's of nature. So when you rebel, you have to use energy, anger, see, or resentment, or some sort of energy to rebel. No wonder you get tired. And you feel guilty for rebelling because you do so resentfully, and eventually you end up conforming. But you see how it's all of nature. It's all conforming and rebelling, attraction and repulsion, see? And above all the attractions and repulsions, there are overriding, binding forces that keep everything together, okay? Well, so now you can see that. So now you see that God created love. And how do we find love? Well, love is, you can see there's no love in the system. See? There's no love in the system. It has to come from outside of the system. And that love is from God. Of course, He created the system, but He created everything to work, to match and work and mesh and gear together and adhere and attach and bond, and all of that. He created it so that everything is in its place and it's beautiful. But now love, see, for the human soul. Can you now see that, so what would freedom be? Now do you see all these attachments? Have you ever had something like sticky paper or sticky tape or something like that, where no matter where you touch it, you stick to it? So you try to take it away from one hand with the other hand, and now it's sticking to the other hand. Then you try to hold it down with your edge of your hand, and then it sticks to the edge of your hand. That's the way it is. In 1,000, million different ways. Okay, so there's no freedom. But now love. Okay, how could there be? So when the human, the animal, the organism, the microbe, the plant, and we are of nature, but we also have a soul. See, we're part immaterial and part material. But in the system in which we operate on this earth, with other people and animals and plants and laws of physics and chemistry and so forth, there's no freedom. There's no escape. That's why, see, but freedom, don't we want freedom? That's why young people always rebel, don't they? Every generation, from time immemorial, the young people have rebelled. But they can't really rebel. See, all they can do is use energy to try to go the opposite way. Or they rebel against one thing, and then you become attached to something else. All you can do is rebel from one thing and then attach to something else. Some people try to escape, get away from their addictions. And so they stop smoking, but they start chewing gum. Then they see they're addicted to chewing gum, so they give up chewing gum, and then they take up toothpicks, and now they're addicted to toothpicks. Sometimes a man tries to, or a lady tries to rebel against one partner and then ends up enslaved to it. They have to find another one to enslave themselves to, or go from the bottle to religion and from religion back to the bottle, or rebel against one religion and then join another group, and you're even more enmeshed there. You see, there's no freedom. Well, but there is, and that's what I want to give you a hint of in this video. I want to keep it short. Freedom is when the soul when the soul attaches to God. See, when the soul, out of love, see, willingly, yearns for the innocence and the goodness that it's never known, but that it somehow yearns for. And then as the soul begins to find God, then God frees you. You see, it talks in the Bible of being set free. Christ said, whom the Son of Man sets free is free indeed. So you have to be set free from these million hypnotic and all these bonds. See, free from the pressures all around you. And that happens as you adhere to God. And you adhere to God in love. Okay? And as you adhere to God, you stop reacting to the outside, because you're no longer subject to the outside. Now you're subject to God. You're subject to God. And the way you can tell that you are subject to God, as you, for example, if you begin my meditation and begin this practice of detaching, see, and observing thought, as I teach, okay, then you become free. You find that you're not reacting. You're reacting less and less. Things that used to upset you don't upset you anymore. Now you just look at them, or perhaps have a little bit of amusement. See? And by not reacting, see, by not trying to oppose them, by not compensating, by not becoming angry and then trying to overcome them. See, that's another aspect of it. But so what do? We try to overcome, so that instead of us being the victim, we become the victimizer. We try to become stronger than the one that we're opposing, so we can oppose them and, see, to have at least some security or some peace. But then you become the bully, see. But all of this, see, free from that. So no longer when people come with their taunts and teases and their cunning and their cruelty and their seductions, you are no longer reacting. When you don't react, you don't give up energy. When you don't give up energy, you remain whole. And you save your emotions for God. Remember, there was what was that rock and roll song? Something, save your love for me. I can't think of it, but that's what it was. So you save your love for God. So now do you see that when Christian mystics, I was reading here Madame Rion, her book, translated, the title translated here, Experiencing God Through Prayer. Okay. Do you see why these Christian mystics, Teresa of Avila, St. John of the Cross, Madame Rion, many of them, they talk of their relationship with God is like a love affair, in the good sense. Love, devotion, marriage. Even Christ spoke of marriage, the marriage supper of the Lamb and so forth, a binding, a joining together, you see. And the more closely you are bound to God, with each time you stand back from something that before you would have reacted to and that would have bound you, each time when you stand back now, you snip another attachment, another bonding, another binding. See, and each time then you're only able to do it with God's help, with his light, his inner light that he sends, and his grace, whatever that is, makes it possible for you to stand back and not react. It's an amazing thing, because when you think about it, you are of the flesh. You do have a soul, but you're of the flesh. And to be able to not react, how can this be? Well, you could say it's a miracle, but God, everything is a miracle that God does. The way the sun shines, and the way the butterfly flies, and the way light, eternal flashlight on, and light immediately springs forth at 186,000 miles an hour. How does it do that? How does light immediately spring forth? Is it a second? I forget. I don't even remember what it is. Here I am with all the math and physics that I do all the time. I'm drawing a blank, but it's fast. Let's put it that way. But it springs forth 186,000 miles per second. Can you imagine how fast that is? How does it do that? It's a miracle. But everything God does is magic. Magic, that's a better word. Not miracle, magic. Everything God does is magic. So through his magic, you are able to now begin to be free of those bonds and attached to God. Free of the earthly enmeshment of the world. Remember, Christ said the love of the world makes for enmity with God. Worldly love is enmeshing, isn't it? It's sticky. See? Because it's not really love. It's supportive. Remember, I talked about that supportiveness is a form of hypnosis. It's a form of binding. When you accept something from someone else to your ego, when you accept some offering to your ego, even if it's just support, then you find yourself somewhat beholden to them, don't you? You do. Even if you accept a free lunch from someone, now you're beholden to them. You find you're less free. You can't speak up to them. See? Well, what you need to do is to learn how to be free, so you can creatively rebel instead of rebelling angrily. This time, rebel in love. See, and when you don't respond to others with your usual anger at them, for example, or your usual pressure, or your usual resentment, whatever it is, when you don't respond to them, see, then they don't have to respond in turn to you, to whatever you do. And they are a little bit free. And they're free to what? They're free to reach within and perhaps found what hopefully you will have found. Your Creator within. And they begin to bond to Him. And all these words like devotion, for example. You hear the mystics, they always talk about devotion. You see that devotion is a facet of love. See, it's a facet of love. They're devoted because they love God. See, so their devotions are not a drudgery at all. Their devotions are just natural. Devotion, love, and then patience with others. When you're attached to God, see, then you're patient with others and you have understanding. And all of these beautiful things come to pass, and you become more and more free, progressively freer and freer and freer, because you are bound to God, see, instead of bound to the world. And you're bound to God in what kind of a bond? A bond of love. You love God. God loves you. He loved you first. And then in return you love Him. You need Him. See? You want to be close to Him. That's how it begins.